Harper's hands were shaking so violently she could barely hold the flashlight steady. The beam of light cut through the darkness of the hidden room, illuminating something she never expected to find. Dusty file boxes stacked floor to ceiling. Photographs yellowed with age. And in the center of it all, a leather-bound journal with her grandmother's name embossed in gold. But it wasn't the journal that made her breath catch. It wasn't the photographs of a life she'd never known existed. It was the newspaper clipping taped to the inside cover, dated 1952, with a headline that would change everything she thought she knew about her family. Local woman becomes town's first female doctor despite family's objections. Harper sank to the dusty floor, the flashlight trembling in her grip, and whispered to the empty room, "Grandma Rose, what did they do to you?" But we're getting ahead of ourselves. To understand why Harper was sobbing on the floor of a secret room in her grandmother's old house, we need to go back. Back to the day her parents proved exactly who they were. Back to the graduation they didn't attend. Back to the moment Harper learned that some families break you just to keep you small. Anyway, before we continue, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who enjoys good stories. Also, comment where you're watching from and what time it is right now. It really helps YouTube show you more stories like this one. Now, let's get back to it. Harper stood in her cap and gown, scanning the auditorium crowd for the 100th time. Around her, graduates hugged their families, posed for photos, cried happy tears. She stood alone near the side exit, phone pressed to her ear, listening to it ring and ring and ring. "Hey, you've reached David. Leave a message." Her father's voicemail. Again. She tried her mother next. Same result. Voicemail. No answer. No callback from the 6 messages she'd already left. They weren't coming. Harper had known on some level since yesterday when her mother's texts had started getting shorter. More evasive. "We'll try our best, honey. Dad's not feeling well. Traffic might be bad." Every excuse building toward this inevitable moment of standing alone at her own college graduation. "Harper Chen?" A photographer called out, camera ready. "Want me to get a shot of you and your family?" "They couldn't make it," Harper said, forcing a smile that felt like broken glass. "Just me today." The photographer's expression shifted to pity, which somehow made it worse. "I can still get a nice shot of just you." Harper posed alone. Smiled for the camera. Accepted her diploma with no one cheering her name. And when it was over, she walked to her car in silence, the weight of her family's absence heavier than any achievement could lighten. The drive back to her apartment took 40 minutes. 40 minutes of trying not to cry. 40 minutes of telling herself it didn't matter, that she didn't need them, that their absence said more about them than it did about her. She was unlocking her door when her phone finally rang. Her mother's name flashed on the screen. "Mom?" Harper answered, hating the hope in her voice. "Did you get lost? Are you still coming?" "Oh, honey." Her mother's voice was distracted, like she was doing something else while talking. "We're not going to make it. Your father's back went out and I can't leave him alone." Harper's throat tightened. "His back went out this morning? Right before my graduation?" "These things happen, Harper. You're being dramatic." "Dramatic?" The word came out sharper than intended. "Mom, this was my college graduation. I've been planning this for months. I told you the date a year ago." "Well, we have lives too, you know." Her mother's tone shifted to defensive. "We can't drop everything just because you want attention." Harper felt something crack in her chest. "Attention? I wanted my parents at my graduation. That's not asking for attention. That's asking for basic support." "This is exactly why we didn't come," her mother said coldly. "You're always so needy. Always expecting us to celebrate every little thing you do." "Little thing?" Harper's voice broke. I just graduated summa cum laude. I'm the first person in our family to finish college. How is that a little thing? Plenty of people graduate college, Harper. It's not that special. You want us to throw a parade every time you do what you're supposed to do? The words landed like punches. Harper leaned against her apartment door, suddenly unable to support her own weight. Your brother's engaged, her mother continued, changing subjects as if Harper's graduation was already forgotten. Did you send him a card yet? He'd really appreciate it if you acknowledged his success for once. His success, Harper repeated numbly. Mason dropped out of college twice and you threw him a party both times. But I graduate with honors and it's not worth a 2-hour drive? Don't be jealous, Harper. It's unbecoming. Mason is doing very well with his life. He doesn't need a degree to be successful. Right. Because Dad gave him a job at the company. Your father gave him an opportunity that Mason earned through hard work and dedication. Unlike you, who just sits in libraries reading books and expecting rewards for doing nothing practical. Harper closed her eyes. I have to go. Fine. Be dramatic. But when you're ready to apologize for being so selfish, you know our number. The line went dead. Harper stood in her apartment doorway, still wearing her graduation gown, and felt the tears finally come. Not sad tears. Angry tears. The kind that came from realizing your parents had never seen you. Had never wanted to see you. Had decided long ago that you weren't worth their time, their pride, their basic human decency. She looked down at the diploma in her hands. 4 years of work. Countless nights studying. Scholarships and part-time jobs and sacrifices they'd never acknowledge. All of it reduced to not that special by a woman who'd missed her own daughter's graduation to stay home with a man whose back had been perfectly fine yesterday. Something hardened in Harper's chest that day. Something that whispered, prove them wrong. Prove them all wrong. And make sure they see exactly what they missed. The weeks after graduation were brutal in ways Harper hadn't anticipated. Her friends moved home to families who celebrated them. Her social media filled with photos of graduation parties, proud parents, siblings holding congratulatory signs. Harper packed up her apartment alone and moved into a tiny studio closer to her new job. The job itself was entry-level research at a small historical preservation nonprofit. The pay was terrible. The office was cramped. But Harper had always loved history, particularly women's history, the stories of women who'd been erased, forgotten, written out of narratives they'd helped create. Her supervisor, Dr. Elena Morrison, was a stern woman in her 60s who'd built her career excavating stories no one else thought mattered. You're the chin girl, Dr. Morrison said on Harper's first day, looking at her over reading glasses. Graduated top of your class. Applied here instead of the corporate archive positions. Why? Harper straightened her spine. Because I want to find stories that matter. Not just catalog documents for companies that don't care about their own history. Dr. Morrison studied her for a long moment. Good answer. You'll do fine here. Assuming you can handle grunt work. I can handle anything, Harper said. She meant it. The grunt work was extensive. Harper spent her days in dusty basements, sorting through abandoned archives, cataloging documents that hadn't been touched in decades. She wore dust masks and work gloves. She sneezed constantly. She went home every night smelling like mold and old paper. But she was finding things. Stories buried under decades of neglect. Women who'd built businesses, fought for rights, created change, and been systematically written out of official records. Look at this, Harper said one afternoon, holding up a faded photograph. This woman, Margaret Torres, she founded the first women's literacy program in this county. But she's not mentioned in any of the official histories. Dr. Morrison took the photo, examining it carefully. Find everything you can about her. If we can build a complete story, we'll add her to the database. Harper did find everything. Marriage certificates, business licenses, newspaper mentions, letters from women she'd taught to read. By the end of the month, Margaret Torres had a complete file, and Harper felt like she'd given someone back their history. "You're good at this," Dr. Morrison said, reviewing Harper's work. "You see people, not just documents." "That's rare." Harper thought about her own family. About being unseen. About fighting to matter. "Everyone deserves to be seen," she said quietly. 6 months into the job, Dr. Morrison called Harper into her office with an unusual request. "There's an estate sale," she said, sliding a newspaper listing across the desk. "Old Victorian house on Maple Street. Been in the same family for generations. Owner died last month, no living relatives. Everything inside is being sold off, including what sounds like extensive personal archives." Harper scanned the listing. "You want me to check it out?" "I want you to buy everything historical you can find. We have a small budget for acquisitions. Use your judgment." The house on Maple Street was exactly the kind of place Harper had dreamed about as a kid reading mystery novels. 3 stories, wraparound porch, turret on the corner, paint peeling in graceful decay. The estate sale sign in the yard looked almost apologetic. Inside, the house was packed. Furniture, dishes, clothes, books, the accumulated debris of a long life. Harper moved through the rooms systematically, looking for anything historically significant. In the study, she found boxes of old photographs. In the bedroom, journals dating back to the 1940s. In the attic, correspondence tied with ribbons, letters that smelled like lavender and thyme. "How much for all the paper documents?" Harper asked the estate coordinator. The woman barely looked up from her clipboard. "The boxes in the study, the attic stuff, the journals? Make me an offer." "Nobody wants that stuff anyway." Harper made an offer that left room in Dr. Morrison's budget for lunch next week. The woman accepted immediately. "You're doing me a favor," she said. "Saves me from hauling it to the dump." Harper loaded everything into her car, making 3 trips. When she was finished, her back seat and trunk were packed with boxes that no one else had wanted. Stories that almost died unloved. But it wasn't until she was making her final walk through, making sure she hadn't missed anything, that Harper noticed the door. It was in the second-floor hallway, easy to miss because it was the same wallpaper as the wall around it. Only visible if you looked closely at the seams, at the slight outline that suggested something more than just wall. Harper pressed against it experimentally. The hidden door swung open with a protest of old hinges, revealing a narrow staircase leading up. "Hello?" she called out. "Anyone mind if I check the attic?" No one answered. The estate coordinator was busy with other buyers downstairs. Harper climbed. The hidden staircase led to a small room tucked under the eaves. Not the main attic where she'd found the other documents. This was something else. Something secret. The room was filled with filing boxes. Photographs covered one wall. And in the center, on a small desk, sat a leather journal with a name embossed in gold, Rose Whitmore. Harper picked up the journal with trembling hands. Opened it carefully. Found the newspaper clipping taped inside. Local woman becomes town's first female doctor despite family's objections. The article was dated March 15, 1952. The photograph showed a young woman in medical attire, serious and proud, standing outside a clinic. Rose Whitmore. The woman whose house this had been. The woman whose life was being sold off in pieces to strangers. Harper read the article quickly. Rose had fought to attend medical school when her family forbade it. Had opened the first women's health clinic in the county. Had spent 40 years treating patients her male colleagues refused to see. Had been called difficult, unnatural, selfish, and worse. And then, apparently, had been forgotten. Harper looked around the hidden room with new eyes. This wasn't just storage. This was a sanctuary. A place where Rose had kept the proof of her own significance, hidden from a family that called her selfish for wanting more than they'd prescribed. "I see you," Harper whispered to the empty room. "I see exactly what they tried to hide." She spent the next 2 hours carefully packing everything in the hidden room. Every file. Every photograph. Every piece of evidence that Rose Whitmore had existed, had mattered, had fought to be more than her family allowed. The research consumed her. Harper spent every spare moment piecing together Rose's life. The medical school applications that had been rejected before one finally said yes. The letters from her father calling her unnatural for wanting a career. The newspaper articles that mentioned her clinic with barely concealed contempt. The patient files that showed decades of women who'd had nowhere else to go. "This is remarkable," Dr. Morrison said, reviewing Harper's findings. "Rose Whitmore should be in every local history book." "Why isn't she?" "Because her family was ashamed of her," Harper said, spreading out documents across the conference table. "Look at this." After she died, her nephew gave an interview calling her unfortunate and misguided. Said she'd wasted her life and died alone because she'd chosen career over family. Did she die alone? Harper pulled out another document. She died surrounded by former patients who considered her family. 73 women attended her funeral. But her actual relatives? They skipped it. Said it was too painful. Then they sold her house and everything in it like she'd never existed. Dr. Morrison removed her glasses, cleaning them slowly. "What do you want to do with this?" "I want to write her story," Harper said. "I want to submit it to the State Historical Journal. I want Rose Whitmore to get the recognition she earned 70 years ago." "That's ambitious for someone 6 months into their first job." "I know," Harper said. "But if not me, then who? If not now, then when? This story has been buried long enough." Dr. Morrison smiled. "Then write it. But make it bulletproof. Use every source. Cite everything. Make it impossible for anyone to dismiss." Harper wrote like her life depended on it. Early mornings before work. Late nights after work. Weekends in her tiny apartment surrounded by documents and coffee cups. She interviewed elderly residents who remembered Rose's clinic. She tracked down medical school records. She found Rose's patients and recorded their stories. One interview stood out. A woman named Dorothy, 91 years old, who'd been one of Rose's first patients. "Dr. Whitmore saved my life," Dorothy said, her voice still strong despite her age. "I had complications from a miscarriage. No male doctor would treat me. They said it was my fault, that I'd done something to cause it, that I should go home and pray. But Dr. Whitmore took me in. Treated me with dignity. Saved my life when everyone else said I didn't deserve saving." Dorothy leaned forward, fixing Harper with intense eyes. "That woman was a hero. But they called her cold. Called her unnatural. Said she hated families because she wouldn't get married and have babies of her own. As if saving other women's lives didn't count. As if her work didn't matter because she did it in pants instead of dresses, with medical degrees instead of recipes." Harper had cried during that interview. Cried for Rose. Cried for Dorothy. Cried for all the women who'd been told they didn't matter because they chose themselves. The article took 3 months to complete. 6,000 words, meticulously researched, properly cited, with photographs and primary sources and testimony from people who'd known Rose personally. Harper submitted it to the State Historical Journal with shaking hands and low expectations. Articles from junior researchers rarely got accepted on the first try. The response came 6 weeks later. "Dear Ms. Chen, we are pleased to inform you that your article, Dr. Rose Whitmore, Pioneer of Women's Healthcare in Rural Communities, has been accepted for publication in our spring issue. Furthermore, we are recommending your research for the statewide Historical Excellence Award, given annually to emerging historians whose work brings overlooked voices to light. Your scholarship is exceptional. Your subject is compelling. We look forward to sharing this story with our readers. Harper read the letter 3 times before she believed it. Then she called Dr. Morrison. They accepted it, she said, her voice breaking. They accepted my article. Of course they did, Dr. Morrison replied. It was brilliant work. When does it publish? Spring issue. 3 months from now. Good. Start working on your next project. 1 publication is promising. 2 publications is a career. Harper hung up and sat in her tiny apartment, looking at the letter. At the proof that her work mattered. That Rose's story mattered. That both of them had been worth seeing all along. She thought about calling her parents. Thought about sending them a copy of the acceptance letter. Thought about proving that she wasn't wasting her life in dusty basements doing nothing practical. But something stopped her. Some instinct that whispered, not yet. Wait until they can't ignore it. Wait until the success is undeniable. So Harper kept working. More articles. More forgotten women. More stories dragged out of darkness and given back their names. The Historical Excellence Award ceremony was scheduled for a Friday evening in November, 2 years after Harper's graduation. 2 years of building her career 1 article at a time. 2 years of living in her tiny apartment, eating ramen, choosing research over everything else. 2 years of her parents' silence. They'd called once, 6 months after graduation, when her mother wanted someone to dog sit while they vacationed. Harper had said no. Her mother had called her selfish. They hadn't spoken since. Now Harper stood in front of her bathroom mirror, adjusting the blazer she'd bought specifically for this event. Not expensive, she couldn't afford expensive, but professional. Grown up. The kind of outfit that said she knew exactly who she was. Her phone buzzed. Dr. Morrison. The university president wants to meet you before the ceremony. Arrive 30 minutes early. Harper's stomach flipped. The university president. The woman whose signature was on Harper's own diploma. The woman who'd built her career fighting for women's spaces in academia. Harper arrived early, palms sweating, mentally rehearsing everything she might say. President Catherine Walsh met her in a private office overlooking the campus quad. She was in her 60s, steel gray hair, sharp eyes, expensive suit, the kind of woman who'd fought every step of her career and won. Ms. Chen, she said, shaking Harper's hand firmly. I've read all your work. You have an exceptional gift for seeing people others miss. Thank you, Harper managed. That means everything coming from you. I didn't bring you here just to give compliments, President Walsh said, gesturing for Harper to sit. I brought you here with a proposal. Your article about Rose Whitmore has generated significant interest. Alumni, donors, community members, they're all asking the same question, how did we forget her? Harper sat carefully. Because forgetting women's contributions is easier than acknowledging them. President Walsh smiled. Exactly. Which is why the university wants to make amends. We're planning to name our new women's health clinic after Dr. Rose Whitmore. We'll be breaking ground next spring. And we'd like you to be involved in the dedication ceremony, to speak about your research, to ensure Rose's story is told correctly. Harper's heart hammered. You want me to speak at the dedication? I want you to be the guest of honor, President Walsh corrected. Your research brought Rose back to life. You gave her the recognition she earned. The university wants to acknowledge both of your contributions. I don't know what to say. Say yes. Then keep doing this work. Keep finding the women we've erased. Keep making it impossible for us to look away. Harper said yes. The award ceremony that evening was held in the university's Grand Hall, the same building where Harper had graduated 2 years ago. But this time, she wasn't alone in the audience. This time, she was on stage. Dr. Morrison introduced her with words that made Harper's chest tight. Harper Chen represents everything we hope for in emerging scholars. Brilliant, dedicated, unafraid to ask difficult questions and pursue answers everyone else has given up on. Harper accepted the award, gave a short speech about Rose, about forgotten women, about the importance of seeing each other. The audience applauded. Colleagues congratulated her. Dr. Morrison hugged her with rare open affection. And in the back of the hall, watching everything with expressions Harper couldn't read, stood her parents. She saw them during the reception. Saw them standing near the refreshment table, out of place in casual clothes while everyone else wore formal attire. Saw the way they watched her move through the crowd, accepting congratulations, laughing with colleagues, belonging. Her mother approached first, hesitant in a way Harper had never seen. "Harper," she said. "We saw the announcement in the paper. About the award. We thought we should come." Harper looked at her mother. At her father standing 2 steps behind, silent and uncomfortable. At these people who'd missed her graduation but showed up now that there was public recognition. "You thought you should come," Harper repeated quietly. "We're your parents," her father said, like that explained everything. "We wanted to support you." "Support me," Harper said. "Like you supported me at graduation? When you said my degree didn't matter? When you called me selfish for wanting you there?" Her mother flinched. "We didn't mean, yes, you did," Harper interrupted gently. "You meant every word. And that's fine. I've made peace with who you are. But don't show up now and pretend you were always in my corner." "Harper, we're proud of you," her mother tried. "Are you?" Harper asked. "Or are you embarrassed that I succeeded without you? That I did exactly what you said was worthless, and it turned into something people respect?" Her father's face reddened. "You're being disrespectful." "I'm being honest," Harper corrected. "There's a difference. You taught me that actually, when you were honest about not caring enough to come to my graduation." "We explained, Dad's back," Harper said flatly. "I remember. Convenient how it went out that exact morning. How it's been fine every day since when you needed it for golf, for Mason's engagement party, for everything except me." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the ambient noise of the reception around them. "I wanted you there," Harper said, her voice softer now but no less certain. "I wanted you to be proud of me. I wanted you to see me as more than the disappointment daughter who didn't fit your plan. But you couldn't do that. Wouldn't do that. So I learned to be proud of myself instead." Her mother's eyes were wet. "We're your family." "Family shows up," Harper said. "Family celebrates successes even when they're different than expected. Family doesn't call their daughter needy for wanting basic support." She picked up her award from the table beside them, the heavy crystal reflecting the overhead lights. "I found a story about a woman whose family called her selfish for choosing herself," Harper continued. "They said she was unnatural for wanting a career. They skipped her funeral because they were embarrassed by how she lived. And then they sold everything she built like it never mattered." Harper looked directly at her father. "Sound familiar?" "That's not fair," he said. "Neither is missing your child's graduation because you decided she wasn't worth the drive." Dr. Morrison appeared at Harper's elbow, reading the situation immediately. "Harper, the photographer wants one more shot of you with the award. If you're ready?" "I'm ready," Harper said, grateful for the exit. She started to turn away, then paused. Looked back at her parents one more time. "I forgive you," she said quietly. "Not because you deserve it. But because I deserve to stop carrying your disappointment. I'm successful. I'm respected. I'm doing work that matters. And I did it entirely without you." She walked away, feeling lighter with every step. 3 months later, Harper stood outside the construction site of the new Rose Whitmore Women's Health Clinic. The building was still just framework, but she could see what it would become. Modern, welcoming, necessary. What do you think she'd say? Dr. Morrison asked, standing beside her. Harper smiled. I think she'd say it's about damn time. The dedication ceremony wouldn't be until next year, when the building was complete. But Harper had been working with the university on the commemorative displays, the permanent exhibit about Rose's life that would greet every patient who walked through the doors. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. Is this Harper Chen? A woman's voice, elderly, uncertain. Yes? My name is Caroline Whitmore. I'm Rose's niece. The one who sold her house. The woman paused. I read your article. About my aunt. About what she did, who she was. And I wanted to apologize. Harper found a nearby bench and sat down slowly. Apologize? I barely knew her, Caroline said. My father, Rose's brother, he told us she was difficult. Unhappy. That she'd wasted her life. So when she died, when we had to deal with her estate, we just wanted it gone. We didn't look at what was in that house. We didn't care. But you care now? I read the stories from her patients, Caroline said, her voice breaking. The women she saved. The lives she changed. And I realized my father lied to us. He was ashamed of his sister for being smarter than him, for succeeding in ways he never could. So he made us ashamed too. Harper felt tears building. Why are you telling me this? Because you gave her back her story, Caroline said. You saw her when her own family refused to. And I want to say thank you. I want to say I'm sorry I sold her things like they didn't matter. I want you to know that because of you, I'm telling my daughter about her great-great-aunt Rose. About the real her, not the version my father created. After they hung up, Harper sat on that bench for a long time, watching construction workers frame the building that would carry Rose's name. She thought about her own parents. About the phone call she'd never get, the apology that would never come. She'd made peace with that. Some people never learn to see past their own narratives. But Caroline had learned. One woman, one family member, choosing to see clearly. It was enough. 18 months later. The Rose Whitmore Women's Health Clinic opened on a Tuesday morning in April. Spring flowers bloomed in the landscaped gardens. The glass and steel building sparkled in the sunlight. And hundreds of people gathered for the dedication ceremony. Harper stood on the stage in a new dress, this one actually expensive, purchased with money from her recent book advance. Because the Rose Whitmore article had become a full biography, had become a bestseller, had become the foundation of Harper's career as a historian who specialized in forgotten women. President Walsh gave the opening remarks. Dorothy, now 93, cut the ribbon with shaking but determined hands. And then Harper stepped up to the microphone. Dr. Rose Whitmore died in 1985, she began. Her family sold her house. Erased her history. Pretended she'd never existed because her success made them uncomfortable. Harper looked out at the crowd. At the former patients. At the medical students. At the women who'd come to celebrate someone they'd never met but understood completely. But Rose didn't disappear, Harper continued. She left evidence. Journals, photographs, patient files, proof that she'd existed, that she'd mattered, that she'd made a difference. She hid that evidence in a secret room, waiting for someone to find it. Waiting for someone to see. Her voice strengthened. I found Rose's story by accident. But keeping it from disappearing again? That was a choice. My choice. Because I understood what it felt like to be called selfish for wanting more. To be called difficult for refusing to be small. To be erased by people who should have celebrated me. She paused, letting the words settle. This building represents more than Rose's legacy. It represents every woman who was told she didn't matter. Every woman who fought anyway. Every woman who left proof of her existence, hoping someone, someday, would choose to see. Harper held up a photograph, Rose Whitmore in her white coat, serious and proud. "I see you, Dr. Whitmore," Harper said. "And because of this clinic, this beautiful building that bears your name, thousands of women will see you too. We'll know your story. We'll understand that being called difficult just means you refused to disappear." The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, Harper stood in the clinic's lobby, looking at the permanent exhibit she'd curated. Rose's photograph. Her medical degree. Testimonials from patients. The newspaper article that had started everything. And beneath it all, a plaque with words Harper had written, "Dr. Rose Whitmore chose herself when her family demanded she choose them. She built a life of meaning when they insisted she live according to their rules. She saved thousands of lives and was called selfish for every single one. This clinic stands as proof that she mattered, that her choices mattered, that refusing to be small is the bravest thing any woman can do." Harper felt someone approach from behind. Turned to find Dr. Morrison, smiling in that rare, warm way she reserved for special moments. "Your parents didn't come," Dr. Morrison observed. "No," Harper said. "They didn't. Their loss. Completely." Harper looked back at Rose's photograph. "But I'm okay. Better than okay. I found my family in different places. In the women I write about. In the stories I uncover. In the community that celebrates instead of diminishes." Dr. Morrison squeezed her shoulder. "Rose would be proud of you." "I hope so," Harper said. "But more than that, I'm proud of me. I'm proud I didn't give up when my family called my work worthless. I'm proud I found Rose's story. I'm proud I fought to make sure she wasn't forgotten." She touched the plaque gently. "I'm proud I chose to see." 2 years later. Harper's second book launched to even more acclaim than the first. Hidden Rooms, Stories of Women History Tried to Erase featured 12 women like Rose, women who'd been systematically written out of records, whose families had been ashamed, who'd hidden evidence of their own significance. The book tour brought Harper back to her hometown for the first time in 4 years. She was scheduled to speak at the public library, the same library where she'd spent hours as a lonely kid reading about women who'd done impossible things. The turnout was standing room only. Women filled every seat, lined the walls, sat on the floor. Young women. Old women. Women who understood what it meant to fight to be seen. Harper spoke for 40 minutes about her research, about finding Rose, about learning that the women who get called difficult are usually just women who refuse to disappear. She took questions. Signed books. Posed for photos. And when it was almost over, when she was signing one of the last books in line, she looked up and found her mother standing there. Harper's hand froze mid-signature. "Hi, honey," her mother said quietly. Harper finished the signature, handed the book to its owner, and stood slowly. "Mom. I read your book," her mother said, holding up a copy. "Actually, I've read both of them. And all your articles. I've been following your career." From a distance, Harper observed. "Yes." Her mother's eyes were wet. "From a distance. Because I didn't know how to face you after what we did. How we treated you. How wrong we were." Harper waited, saying nothing. "You were right," her mother continued, her voice breaking. "At the award ceremony. When you said we were embarrassed by your success. You were right about all of it. Your father's back was fine that day. We just didn't want to come. We didn't think your degree mattered because it wasn't what we'd wanted for you." "And now?" Harper asked quietly. "Now I see what you built. The books. The recognition. The women's stories you've saved. And I realize you were never the disappointment. We were." Harper felt something shift in her chest. Not forgiveness, not yet, but something softer than anger. I can't give you back your graduation day, her mother said. I can't undo calling you selfish or saying your work didn't matter. But I can tell you now, clearly, that I was wrong. You weren't too much. We were too small. A tear slid down her mother's cheek. I'm proud of you, Harper. I should have been proud years ago. I should have been there. But I'm saying it now because you deserve to hear it. Harper stood there in the library, surrounded by women who'd come to celebrate her work, facing the mother who'd almost made sure there was no work to celebrate. Thank you, Harper said finally. For saying that. For meaning it. But I need you to understand something. Her mother nodded, waiting. I built this life without you, Harper said gently. I learned to be proud of myself. I found family in other places, with other people who chose to see me. Your approval now, while I appreciate the honesty, doesn't change the foundation I built. I know, her mother whispered. But, Harper continued, if you want to start over, if you want to actually know me instead of the daughter you wished I'd been, I'm willing to try. Slowly. Carefully. Without erasing the past. Her mother sobbed once, sharp and honest. I'd like that. I'd really like that. They didn't hug. Didn't immediately reconcile. But they exchanged phone numbers. Made plans for coffee next month. Left space for the possibility that family could be rebuilt on different terms, with clearer boundaries, with mutual respect instead of assumed obligation. As Harper drove back to her hotel that night, she thought about Rose Whitmore. About the secret room. About evidence left behind for someone to find. She thought about all the women she'd researched who'd been called difficult, selfish, unnatural, for refusing to be small. She thought about the girl who'd stood alone at her graduation, wondering if she'd ever be enough. And she knew with absolute certainty that she'd always been enough. The only thing that had changed was her ability to see it. Harper pulled over at a lookout point, watching the city lights below. She opened her phone and posted on social media, something she rarely did but felt compelled to now. To every woman who was called difficult, you weren't difficult. You were inconvenient to people who wanted you small. To every woman who was called selfish, you weren't selfish. You were choosing yourself, and they called it selfishness because it didn't serve them. To every woman who stands at her achievements alone, you are enough. You were always enough. And the people who couldn't see it missed out on knowing someone extraordinary. Keep being difficult. Keep choosing yourself. Keep leaving evidence of your existence. Someone, someday, will find it and make sure you're not forgotten. I promise. The post went viral within hours. Thousands of comments from women who understood, who'd been called the same names, who'd built their lives despite families that demanded they stay small. Harper read through them until her eyes burned, feeling the weight and beauty of sisterhood, of women choosing to see each other when the world insisted on looking away. She thought about Rose one more time. About that hidden room filled with proof. I saw you, Harper whispered to the night. And because I saw you, thousands more will see themselves. Will know they're not alone. Will understand that difficult is just another word for deserving more. The city sparkled below, full of stories waiting to be found. Full of women waiting to be seen. Harper turned her car back toward the hotel, already planning her next book, her next excavation, her next rescue of a woman history tried to erase. Because some of us were called difficult. And we chose to prove them right,